In this game, Mikhail Chigorin sacrificed his queen on move 10 in order to increase the activity of his remaining pieces to the maximum extent and carry out a deadly attack on the enemy king. And on move 14, the game was over. Chigorin's opponent, Knorre, started with e4, Chigorin played e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, bishop c5, the Italian game. White castled kingside, d6, d3, knight f6. In this position, the main moves for white are either c3, taking under control the important central square, preparing either d4 or b4, or h3, taking under control the g4 square and preventing black from pinning the kingside knight, or simply developing the queenside knight, knight c3. However, instead of all this, in our game, white played bishop g5, pinning the black knight. And as this game will show, that was a dubious decision, because while the white king has already castled kingside, the black king is still in the center, and that means black can actually afford the weakening of his kingside. And that's exactly what Chigorin did. h6, attacking the bishop. The bishop retreated to h4 in order to keep the knight pinned. However, black played g5. And the weakening of the kingside isn't dangerous for black because the black king can castle queenside later in the game if needed, while the white king has already made the committal decision. It's placed on the kingside, and by playing g5, black actually started a very dangerous pawn storm on the kingside with tempo, attacking the bishop. Bishop g3, and now a very strong move followed, h5, threatening to play h4 and trap the bishop. However, leaving the g5 pawn unguarded, and the knight can capture it. Actually, the idea of h5 belongs to no one other than Wilhelm Steinitz, as this exact position arose in his game against Dubois before our game. However, in that game, Steinitz didn't manage to show the whole beauty of his idea, because Dubois didn't capture on g5. Instead, he made a stronger move, h4, in order to prevent black from playing h4. However, in our game, Chigorin's opponent made a mistake and captured on g5, and Chigorin actually realized Steinitz's idea, and we got a chance to see this great sacrifice, great idea. So, at first sight, it looks like by capturing on g5, white prevented black from playing h4, because white has created a very unpleasant threat. Knight takes f7 with a fork. However, now we can see Steinitz's idea. He leaves f7 unguarded and still plays h4, attacking the bishop. And after knight takes f7, he sacrifices his queen. H takes g, leaving the queen under attack, and after knight takes d8, we can see Steinitz's idea. Black pieces are extremely active. After h takes g, the rook's file is open, the rook is attacking h2, the bishop is very strong, exerting very strong pressure and pinning the f-pawn. The pawn on g3 can be counted as a piece because it attacks both f2 and h2 and is very dangerous. Besides that, white pieces are undeveloped, the queenside pieces are undeveloped, the knight is out of play and too far away from the kingside, the bishop cannot take part in the defense of the kingside either because it is closed by its own pawn, so that means the king is all alone and it turns into the target of attack. Besides that, black starts to activate the remaining pieces with great effect. Bishop g4, activating the bishop with tempo, attacking the queen. If white decides to return the queen in order to ease the tremendous pressure, that wouldn't have helped. After queen takes g4, before capturing the queen, black would make an in-between move, g takes f check. Of course, the rook cannot capture, because after knight takes g4, the rook would be lost, it would be pinned. So, after king h1, the only move, now knight takes g4, and white doesn't have time to save the knight, because black is threatening checkmate in 1. And after h3, parrying that threat, black simply captures the knight, white cannot capture the knight as the pawn is pinned, so black would simply be a piece up. That's why after bishop g4, white cannot even return the queen, so Knorre played queen d2. But now another piece joins the attack with great effect, knight d4, creating an immediate threat, knight e2, check, and after king f1, king h1, simply checkmate in one move. The best way of playing for white in this position would have been h3. So in this case, black would have played knight e2 check. The king cannot move to the corner because of a beautiful checkmate in two moves in this case. That's why white would be forced to return the queen. And after bishop takes e2, white wouldn't have time to save the rook, which is under attack, because after rook c1, for example, simple bishop takes f2 check with the same idea. Checkmate in two moves would follow. But after bishop takes e2, instead of moving the rook, there is a computer move, actually. A strong move, knight e6, saving the knight with tempo, creating a threat. Knight takes c7 with a fork and also attacking the valuable bishop. However, black still has a strong move, bishop b6, retaining the valuable bishop and defending c7. In this case, white, of course, still doesn't have time to save the rook for the same reason. Bishop takes f2, followed by the rook sacrifice and checkmate on f3. That's why knight c3 might have followed, attacking the bishop, and black would capture the rook. So, in this case, black would have been an exchange up, but white still would be able to continue the resistance. So that would have been the best way of playing for white. However, all this is too complicated. This is the computer variation, and Knorre almost didn't have chances to find it. Instead, he made a human move. Black is threatening knight e2 check. That's why Knorre played knight c3, taking under control the e2 square. Now, knight e2 doesn't work. However, there is another move which finishes the game on the spot. You can pause the video and try to find it. So the move is knight f3 check. White must accept the sacrifice, because if king h1, simply checkmate in one move. And after g takes f, however, bishop takes f3, and the bishop controls both squares and g2 and h1, and the king doesn't have a single move. And black has created a deadly threat. G takes h, checkmate. White cannot capture the pawn on g3 with the f-pawn, as it's pinned. And if white captures with the h-pawn, then rook h1 checkmate would follow. And in case white plays h4, for example, in order to prevent g takes h checkmate, then simply rook takes h4, and there is nothing white can do against rook h1 checkmate. That's why Knorre resigned. And now I recommend watching Chigorin's brilliant victory against the father of positional chess, Wilhelm Steinitz. Playing romantic chess, Chigorin sacrificed a pawn to grab the initiative and then found creative tactical ways of increasing it until Steinitz's position collapsed. But first, don't forget to like this video and subscribe, as it's really helpful for the channel growth.